Hey everyone, it's Brad and Josh here, and we welcome you back, or for the first time, to We'll Bring the Popcorn, your favorite film and TV podcast.
There's no easy way to transition into our next film because these are two completely diametrically opposed movies, but we have Freakier Friday, which is the follow-up to the Freaky Friday movie that starred Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, and they are back in their roles as Tess and Anna in this film, and we get kind of a little bit of a modern-day update here where Anna is, a mom to Harper, who's played by Julia Butters in this, and she's getting married to Manny Jacinto's character, Eric, and that's kind of the central plot of this film is just the merging of their two families. Manny Jacinto, I want to see him. I know you and I have talked about this before we recorded, but we just want to see him in more stuff, man. Manny Jacinto is an awesome actor. We loved him in The Good Place.
Yeah, I fell in love with him in The Good. He played that buffoon so well in there, but we've seen so many different layers from him now.
Yeah, I want to see him in more stuff. He was really good in this, and this is definitely leaning more into the campier, sillier type of family comedy films that we're kind of used to seeing, and you get those elements of, the body switching in the story and the lessons to be learned and all of that. And it gets kind of a modern update here. I want to hear what you thought about this film.
I'd say this was kind of a good palate cleanser after Weapons because you kind of need something lighthearted and silly and over the top because you kind of know going in. Like Freaky Friday came out 22 years ago. Yep. It was a Disney movie. It's a Disney family film. It's going to be silly, absurd, over the top. It's not going to have the best of story all the time, but I had fun with him. I had fun with my girls on. I do think the second half is much better than the first.
Absolutely.
I think the first half was a little too much of just trying to cram everything in. And it wasn't until it really got into the heart and the soul of what they needed to be able to get back into their bodies that really let the actors shine.
Yeah.
And let Jamie Lee Curtis have a ton of fun playing a teenager again and stuff. But it was really nice to see. We know Lindsay Lohan has gone through a ton of stuff. Like a lot of these child actors have had a rough go after their childhood is done in Hollywood and what Hollywood does to them. So it was nice to see her, back in a film and doing this again. I know she's done some more of the Hallmark type of films since then on Netflix. I call them the Hallmark type because that's what everyone knows. There's rom-com Christmas movies and stuff like that, but I actually had fun with it. Like I said, the second half is so much better. The first half is like, well, let's make some Gen X and Gen Z and Gen whatever jokes and make sure everyone knows that we're hip and cool and we know this and we know that and we can make this lingo and do that lingo and let's jam this in. And like it was just trying to stuff a whole lot in at the beginning, but it did kind of let out some story items that I kind of still wonder about afterwards because we get that, Anna has a child now, but we don't really know. Like it's just referred to as she decided to be a single mother. So there's no reference to a dad or she did a surrogacy or she did an artificial insemination. If she did anything like that, it was just kind of like she has a kid. Yeah. And it kind of just didn't set up any other story like that. And I'm like, well, there's avenues they could have gone with that, especially referring back to characters and things from the first film, but overall I had an enjoyable time with it. It's silly and it's rough at times, but like I said, that second half kind of makes up for a lot of the rougher parts in the first half.
Yeah, this is a film that definitely doesn't take itself too seriously. Like that's what I enjoyed about this one. Like you said, the word palate cleanser is apt just comparing it to the movie that we just reviewed in Weapons, but yeah, this doesn't take itself too seriously. It's a lot of fun. You have Lindsay Lohan's character is a big music manager now, and she's managing this artist, and while also balancing the work life, the mom life, while also trying to get married. And that's kind of the central plot of the story is, them wanting to get married and either move to live where Eric is from, which is London. They want to either move to London or stay in Los Angeles, and you have the two different viewpoints of Anna's daughter, Harper, wants to stay in L.A. Eric's daughter, Lily, wants to move to London, where she's trying to become, she wants to work in fashion. She wants to do this. She thinks she'd have a better chance of doing that in London versus L.A. And, that's kind of the back and forth. It's kind of the central plot of this whole film.
And the daughters don't get along at all. Like, they didn't know that their parents, because, sorry to jump in there, their parents met because they got into a big food fight with each other. And we jump into that Anna and Eric met during a parent-teacher conference with the principal over the food fight. And it kind of just, okay, well, now we're like 9 months later and they're about to get, or 6 months later and they're about to get married.
Yeah, and it doesn't explain how Eric necessarily got to LA to begin with, to have his daughter in there to consider.
Well, it did because he's opening a restaurant.
Sure, yeah. But they didn't spend that much time on
Yeah,
it.
they spent 5 minutes on kind of establishing the plot before it's like, all right, now let's switch.
Like, here's our excuse, and we kind of just deal with that. But it's very loose. That's what I mean by it. Yeah. But you have, obviously Jamie Lee Curtis is the overbearing doctor, grandma, psychiatrist who
podcaster,
podcaster, which was very funny. It was that scene in particular was really funny. It made me laugh because I was like, I feel those issues. But she is very heavily trying to convince them to stay in LA because she wants the family close and all that stuff. And she does that job very, very well before the switch. And I agree. The second half of the film where it really takes off, where they get to the switch and they have to start, going and taking the story from there, is where it really kicks in. Because you could just tell Jamie Lee Curtis had to have an absolute blast making this movie, because she, in my opinion, is the real shining part of this. You get, I think Harper does a fine job too. The Julia who plays Harper does a fine job when she's playing her mother, and kind of, everybody kind of does their own thing here, and it's fun to watch them kind of switch roles and have a good time with it. But those two in particular, I think, did probably the best job of anybody in this film. But man, it was just a ton of fun. It mixes in all the elements that you would want from this. You have the music element, you have the humor, you have the silliness, and like I said, it's not afraid to kind of just poke fun at itself and just, have some fun with it. And I think that was needed for this. Is it the best story in the world? Not necessarily, but I don't even think the plot was all that bad. The plot was fine. Like the
plot wasn't bad.
They do a fine job with it too. It's just I think sometimes they try a little too hard. Like I think the people that with the humor a little bit, and like you said, the whole old people trying to sound hip or older people trying to sound young, and how it comes across. And you could tell this movie was probably written by people in their 40s trying to sound like they were in their teens or 20s, which doesn't always connect. But like I still think it was fun. It had some funny moments. I was laughing at quite a bit of it too. Like it was a good time. I had a lot of fun. It was enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree. Jamie Lee Curtis just looked like she was having a ball the whole time. She got the most ridiculous stuff to do. Even Lindsay Lohan got a lot of ridiculous stuff to do when she went full bore into it. But I do believe Julia as Harper's, like, you could see, especially at the end, you saw the posture and the way she spoke and the way she acted was very more mature and more grown up and everything. And she handled that really well, especially the more emotional scenes as it got. That felt like a genuine connection between those two. And yeah, there's some story elements that are just kind of thrown in there that doesn't fully connect. And I'm going to go a little spoilery with one character that it felt weird in the first movie and it felt weird in this movie, which is Chad Michael Murray comes back as Jake in this, but he's kind of just almost a glorified cameo. He's got more time than a standard cameo and stuff in it, but they continue a joke from the first film, which was, it's explained away in the first film that he kind of had the hots for Tess, for the grandma, for the mom, but it was because Anna was in her body, and then he learned that, his connection was really with her. But they decided to just bring that joke back to this, where he still got the hots for it. It just came across more creepy than anything to me. He's chasing cougars and everything else now, but it felt weird in the first movie, but then you kind of was okay with it by the end because you had that connection between Anna and Jake. And in this one, they just went, all right, we're just going to go full creepy with them. I don't know, that aspect didn't work for me. They could have done a whole lot more with Jake, especially since we did leave at the first that Anna and Jake were together. We bring back that they've, for whatever reason, things didn't work out. I thought one story element that they didn't touch on in the beginning was going to be highlighted with him towards the end, but nothing really happened. But he was just kind of creepy.
I was kind of waiting for a reveal that he would have been Harper's dad.
That's what I was alluding to.
I was waiting for it too, and that doesn't get explored in this. So that's not really a spoilery type of thing. But that was kind of me going into it. I was like, oh, she has a kid. Oh, it had to have been Chad Michael Murray, because you've seen him in the trailer. He's coming back. Like, okay, he's going to be her dad, and he's going to have some kind of. And this is the way I was just kind of laying out the plot of the film in my mind. Like, he's going to be involved with, and he's going to kind of mess with them getting married or have some kind of involvement with, a little bit more with the plot than what he did, and that wasn't the case at all with this. Like he was like you said, you kind of laid it out perfectly, but I was kind of expecting that element to be in the story, and we didn't get that, and I think it was a little bit of a potential missed opportunity. But I get it. You don't have to necessarily deal with the whole Harper's father element in this. Like it's not really pertinent to the story, but they do kind of deal with like Lily's mom, which is why
that's what's weird.
Which is why I was surprised that they didn't like deal with like both ends and have kind of that duality of it, their shared bond, because they don't really dive into what happens with Harper's father, but they do spend a decent amount of time talking about Lily's mom and how Lily's mom was no longer around and all that stuff, and just Eric dealing with that heartbreak and being ready to find love again, and he finds it with her. Like they don't really dive into it that much, and I was kind of waiting to see if that was going to get explored, and it just quite frankly didn't. And I think it was a little bit of a missed opportunity if I wanted to nitpick a little bit, because I think you could have had them kind of trauma bonding in that way and kind of helping bring the two daughters together. But overall, it didn't take away anything from the film for me. I just think there was a little bit more meat on there that they could have gone into.
Yeah, it was odd because it plays a critical part to Lily's story about how she's feeling is because of her mom, and she feels that leaving London might be losing a piece of her mom. She doesn't want to talk about her mom because she feels like she's going to lose what she has left of her with that. But Harper's just like, there's no even idea of a dad. Like there's just like Anna had a kid, but there's just no alluding to what happened, because they kind of beat you over the head with it a little bit. Like when you chose to be a single mom, when you chose to be a single mom, when you're a single mom, when you chose to be a single mom, it's like, okay, we get she's a single mom, but there still has to be a dad or a syringe or something within there that they didn't really allude to, which, I mean, in the end, it didn't play that big, but you got to think when a kid grows up without a dad, that can play a part in their behavior and how they act. But it was more I mean, there's a great mother-daughter dynamic between them.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was just that oddity that you're spending a lot of time on that with Lily, but Harper just doesn't have anything because she's got the overbearing grandma, she's got her mom, which is enough. But their explanation for the dad and the family aspect on that side was just a little odd, because I was alluding to it, but didn't say it out. I did expect Jake would have ended up being the dad. Like maybe he didn't know, and they find out later or something, or he did know, and he tries to break stuff up. But as you mentioned early on, Manny, he's so much fun. He's doing an accent in here and being charming, but also a little... He gets a little drama almost at the end, like when at the rehearsal dinner when he breaks the glass and stuff, and you get to see the more dramatic. Like he's a guy that Phil has a ton of range as an actor, and you're starting to see him get more and more roles. I want to see him leading roles and big roles and big films out there, because he was the best thing about The Acolyte to us, and he was fantastic in The Good Place, and he's been a really good kind of character actor, and I really want to see him do more. There's a great dance sequence that he did in the movie that he just nails. Like he's a solid, fun actor that can do the humor and then hit you with an emotional beat right after that, like so well. Like he's a really fantastic actor. I'm glad they had him be a part of this film, because he played that guy who's like, all right, I'm going to be a little standoffish here. Like you're dealing with your stuff. The wedding's coming up. I've got my restaurant. I've got this stuff. I'm going to let you all be your thing. But then when it came to like, all right, there's fighting, there's everything else going on, it's time for me to like step in and do something. And he played that really well. Yeah,
I could see him being kind of this rom-com leading man. Like I could see him at the front of these movies. He's a handsome guy. Like he's a very good looking guy. He's funny. He's got the acting chops that we think could lend well to leading this, leading another rom-com movie that, hopefully he gets more opportunities. I don't want to necessarily pigeonhole him into a genre or anything, but
we also know he can do action from the fantastic lightsaber battles that he did.
Yeah, he could do it. He's got a ton of range, and I hope he gets a chance to show it moving forward, because I'm a big fan of his, especially like you said, he was one of the real standout performers from The Good Place for me. Like he was one of my favorite characters on the show, and I'm really excited to see him kind of really take off here and hopefully just have more creative opportunities for him moving forward, because I'm just a big fan. I like him a lot.
Yeah, he was a ton of fun in it, even though most of it revolves around Anna and Tess with Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, but they look like they fell right back into their relationship and their friendship and everything else, because I know this kind of Jamie Lee Curtis said that this film kind of came about because Lindsay Lohan just had her child and went over to visit Jamie Lee Curtis, and they took a picture and people put it out and like, oh, wait, are we getting another Freaky Friday? And it's like, okay, let's explore this and see what happens. But this was a fun little family film. You're not going in to have the deepest story and the most cohesive stuff. It makes a ton of jokes at our age and the mid-30s to early 40s and stuff, and also jokes at Jamie Lee Curtis's expense because she's talking about crevices in her face as, she's the teenager now, but why are there crevices in my face? And all, like, she just had a ton of fun, even like going through, what was it, Walgreens and grabbing, like, you go grab the essentials. What are essential senior needs? And she's looking and grabbing things, because I would say stay for the credits, because there is a kind of a blooper reel that airs at the beginning of the credits, which is a lot of fun. You get to see some of those scenes where they're just, it looked like they just had an absolute blast, and it did feel that way through the movie too. Like, so it looked like they just had a lot of fun. I'll say again that I do feel like the first half was the weakest part of it, as it set up. But once it really got into the switch, where they're finally starting to deal with the issues and getting to the heart of it. And even though I complained about Chad Michael Murray's character and stuff, that record store scene was a lot of fun, because Jamie Lee Curtis is crawling along the ground and, what are you doing down there? I'm stretching. Or back in the back room, she's trying to I'm telling my body that I want to stand up, but it's not standing up. I felt that.
I felt that spiritually. But yeah, they have a ton of fun with it, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. But in the end, Freakier Friday is a ton of fun. It's a family comedy that everybody can really relate to. It's a fun film. It doesn't take itself too seriously. The front half takes a little bit of setting up and kind of takes away from the overall quality of the movie, but the back half of the film is just a real fun joyride when they finally make the switch and start going through, like you said, some of the meatier elements of the story. I'm giving this a solid 7.5. For me. Like, I had a ton of fun with this. The musical scene in particular towards the end, where they have the two switches and they tried to creatively work their way out of it to perform on a stage in front of people, was a lot of fun for me. I know we really didn't talk about that in the review, but I had a ton of fun with that. I'm giving it a 7.5. It's a lot of fun. There's some laughs. It tries a little bit too hard at sometimes, but I think that's part of the charm of the film, and it worked for me. It was a very worthy follow-up to a sequel to a movie that I really enjoyed when it came out 22 years ago, and I'm happy to see the updated version of this. Give Manny Jacinto more roles, please. I want to see him in a lot more stuff, but I had a lot of fun with it, so I'm giving it a 7.5.
Well, Josh stole exactly what I was going to say, so I don't have a lot more to add to that, because I agree with everything. Like, Manny was fantastic. I really love that. There was a lot of jokes for our generation, for the new generation. Again, as you said earlier in the review, it did sound like probably someone in their 40s or 50s tried to write a lot of the Gen Z jokes and everything else. The first half didn't work as well for me. It was the second half when it really got into the heart and the soul of this story. There were some genuine emotions, some genuine laughs, and I think they all did really well. It was really good to see Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis back as these characters, because a lot of times when you've gone this long to bring something back after 22 years, it can feel a little rough or off, but I think they did a solid job of bringing it back. It has a lot of beats and elements from the first, but it does enough of its own thing to make it kind of more unique and make it a solid sequel. Like, it ends in a very similar way that the first one did, but it was a lot of fun. I'm giving it a 7.5 as well. And that, as I always do with family films, my girls absolutely loved it. They had a ton of fun with it. We watched the first Freaky Friday about a week before we went and saw this one, because they saw the trailer and like, hey, we want to go see that. We'll watch the first one first, so you know the whole story, and then we'll go in. But they had a blast, so that gets an extra point in there. But 7.5 is solid for this. Like, it's a Disney family movie, and you got to know kind of what that is. That's a genre in itself, as a Disney family film. It's got some corny cheesiness to it. It's got some rough parts to it, but overall, especially with how it nailed the ending, it was a lot of fun.
To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio room on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to willbringthepopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.